When I was 17 years old, I looked like a fucking woman. I had bitch tits and everything. Now I've got testosterone levels of a caveman, 1,500 nanograms per deciliter, and I achieved that naturally. Now, when it comes to zinc, the problem is with the deficiency. You know, it's like with all these minerals, right? We need the proper amount so that our body has enough to use. If there's 3 things I want you to remember after this video, I'm going to list them here so they're, you know, they're here immediately. It's this. Number 1, zinc, magnesium, and vitamin D3 are like the foundation to everything testosterone related, right? You can sun your balls, you can ice your balls, you can like take boron, you can sleep 100 hours a night, you can do all that shit. But if you don't have these 3 nutrients, it's not going to have, well, it's going to have a minimum effect. And the reason is because these 3 things, they're literally the cofactors for so many proteins and enzymes which partake in the process of steroidogenesis, the production of testosterone, that literally they are the foundation, right? So the 3 main ones are zinc, magnesium, and vitamin D3. So zinc, magnesium, and vitamin D3, they are the foundation, and if they're insufficient in the blood, nothing else matters. No other lifestyle or dietary or modification, whatever, nothing else matters. The testosterone production will be halted. Now, the second thing I want you to remember is that although magnesium and vitamin D3 have like natural storage mechanisms inside of the body, our body is actually able to retain them for weeks, sometimes even months, such as with D3. Zinc doesn't have that. So zinc does not have the ability to be stored in the body for more than literally a couple of days. So it's crucial that we supplement this or eat the foods that contain it on a regular basis, right? Let's talk about food. When you look at like which foods actually have zinc in them, you see quite a number of foods, right? Like red meat, beef, all that stuff. That's tremendous. But then you also see things like nuts, things like seeds, things like legumes, grains, that they have a lot of zinc. But here comes the problem, right? This is the third thing I want you to remember. I want you to write this shit down and look at it every single day, right? Legumes, nuts, seeds, and grains, they will literally destroy the absorption of zinc in your gut for a couple of hours. What that means is that not only when you eat bread or beans and all nuts that have zinc, not only will that zinc not get absorbed, but also if you eat your beef, if you eat your meats together with those things, that zinc from the meats also will not get absorbed. So grains, legumes, seeds, and nuts destroy zinc absorption, right? In fact, in 1971, they did one study. This is the only study I'm going to, talk about here, where they separated men into 2 groups. And one of them, they gave oysters. Now, oysters is one of the most zinc-rich foods. In fact, in some cultures, it's actually used as an aphrodisiac. That's how powerful zinc is, and that's how powerful oysters are when it comes to supplying zinc. And the second group, they gave oysters and tortilla, like corn tortillas, right? Like these little wraps and stuff. Now, it turned out that the second group, the one with the corn tortillas, they absorbed 0% of the zinc in the oysters, 0%. So it literally destroyed the zinc absorption. Now, as a bonus, anything that has skins, right? Polyphenols, for example, fruits like apples, like pears, vegetables like peppers, nightshades, all these things, they will also drastically reduce the absorption of zinc, right? Not only, these destroy it, 0%. Polyphenols, they decrease it, they make it less bioavailable, but still you absorb some of it. So what's the take-home message of all this? Right? Before we get going with mechanisms and stuff. First of all, I want you to take this every single day. And if you don't manage to take it once, to do a double dose on the second day, because there is no innate storage in the body, and it is one of the most critical things when it comes to testosterone production, when it comes to steroidogenesis. And whenever you do supplement it, whenever you eat beef and stuff, whenever you eat oysters, things that are rich in zinc, never pair them with grains, never pair them with legumes, with nuts, with seeds. In fact, maybe it's even worth it to avoid apples because of the skins, pears, berries. Berries have skins as well. There's a lot of polyphenols in berries. Why? Because polyphenols also destroy the absorption. They drastically reduce it. So what does zinc actually do in the body, right? What is the mechanism of action? So if you remember correctly, for testosterone to do its job, it needs a receptor, right? So let's draw it over here. We have our little receptor and then we have our testosterone molecule. Now, one of the most important things zinc does is it actually makes this, right? This sort of attraction better. It makes this more sensitive. It makes the receptor better at doing its job. What happens then? It's easier for the testosterone molecule to actually go into the receptor, right? So one thing it does is it increases the androgen receptor sensitivity. Now, what about like the power of this molecule? So this is, let's say this is our testosterone molecule. It's powerful. It does a lot of signaling. Imagine a ship, it docks and it drops a lot of cargo. Now, there's actually a molecule which is 3 to 10 times as powerful as testosterone, and it's called dihydrotestosterone. It's called DHT, right? DHT is almost, well, it's 3 to 10. It depends on the tissue, that we're talking about. It's, let's say, 10 times as powerful as our testosterone, right? Now, it turns out that zinc not only makes this attraction better, not only makes the receptors more sensitive, but it also increases the amount, right? The amount of this DHT that is being produced, right? It increases the conversion of our testosterone into DHT through this enzyme called 5-alpha reductase, right? So more DHT, more powerful androgens. Now, when it comes to the actual process of steroidogenesis, it has one bottleneck, right? Well, actually, in fact, it has two extremely important things. One of them is an enzyme and another one of them is a protein. The enzyme is the bottleneck for the entire reaction, right? So when we have our conversion, right, from cholesterol, this is our cholesterol in the blood, right? Cholesterol into our testosterone, right? The bottleneck in this entire reaction, our bottleneck, let's call it X, is this enzyme called CYP11A1. This is an enzyme, right? And zinc is actually, together with magnesiums, they are the cofactors of this enzyme. And in fact, this enzyme controls the entirety of the reaction. If there is not enough zinc, if there's not enough magnesium, well, then this can't play, it can't work, right? The reaction can't progress. That's why I said in the start, magnesium, zinc, and D3, they are the foundation. Without them, you literally don't have the building blocks to build the house, right? There's nothing to put the house on top, right? So zinc actually increases the conversion of cholesterol into testosterone through this molecule, right? It increases this. Also, there's such a thing as star acute, well, it's called the star protein, so steroidogenic acute regulatory protein. What that does is that it essentially grabs the cholesterol inside of the blood and it forces it into the testicle, right? Zinc actually, through an epigenetic basis, through the expression of DNA of that star protein, it increases the expression, right? So not only that, it also increases the expression of the star protein gene. So let's recap, right? Not only do we have increased androgen receptor sensitivity, so more of the signaling can take place, right? More ships can dock and leave the cargo. Not only do we have more DHT production, right? So not only do the ships, there's more of them, but they actually have more cargo, right? They leave more stuff in the ports. But now also we have we increased the amount of building blocks available through influencing the bottleneck, right? Which is our X. So basically every single important thing, well, in fact, zinc actually decreases it doesn't decrease it, but sufficient zinc amounts will reduce the amount of sex hormone binding globulin that your body makes. And hence you have more free testosterone available. So literally every single possible thing that zinc could do, it influences the steroidogenic pathway. Now, when it comes to the natural sources of zinc, so I already mentioned oysters, right? But like, let's be honest, we don't really eat oysters, right? Like, who the fuck eats oysters? Do you know what I mean? But when it comes to the bioavailable zinc, most of it is actually present in red meat. You fucking guessed it, right? Like the king of food, right? So most of your zinc you're going to have from natural sources, you're going to get from red beef. So there's approximately 5 milligrams of zinc in 100 milligrams of red meat, whether that's ground, whether that's liver, whether that's some other cut, right? Now, when it comes to how much zinc you actually need, the recommended dose is approximately 15 milligrams. But I don't think 15 milligrams is enough. From my personal subjective experience through years of doing it, I believe that 30 is better, right? And in fact, some supplements, they actually say, okay, eat 30. And some doctors will also say the same. So when you let's say you eat 300 grams of red meat per day, and you eat it without legumes, without grains, etc., etc., you can add on to that one pill of, usually it's about 15 milligrams of zinc. So when we talk about supplements, which forms of supplement are the best? There's actually two, in my opinion, the best ones, and what really decides is the price. So the first one is a lot cheaper, but it's less bioavailable. It's less bioavailable, it's a bit more harsh on your body, right? It's a bit, they say don't take it with food, right? Although I wanted to break this fucking legend, and I overdosed on it. I took 30 milligrams, so that's 2 pills, where the recommended amount is 15 milligrams. And I took it after a fast on an empty stomach. I did that literally 3 hours before the video because I wanted to make sure that I can overdose it and still not get any side effects. There's nothing. So, you know what I mean? Like, experiment with it, but don't be afraid to take this on an empty stomach. So, what's the best form of zinc? It's called zinc picolinate. So zinc picolinate is, let's say, the king of zinc supplements. It's obviously the one which is actually more expensive. The second one is actually zinc citrate. Now, zinc citrate is dirt cheap. That's the one I use. So if price is a factor for you, then consider the zinc citrate. If you have a little bit more of a budget, let's say, then do zinc picolinate, right? So let's talk about the elephant in the room here. So we talked about doses, right? When you eat red meat, aim for 15 milligram supplementation. When you don't eat red meat, take for the double, right? So aim for 30 milligrams. Anything until 40 milligrams of zinc per day is not going to cause harm. When you eat red meat, 15 milligrams, whether that's zinc picolinate, whether that's zinc citrate. When you don't, take 2. But the real problem here is, the real, let's say, optimization that we could do is actually optimizing it for the absorption. Whenever you eat these things, right, these grains, these, things that contain phytic acid, right, the anti-mineral phytic acid, the polyphenols present in apple skins, pear skins, blueberry skins, etc. These things, they actually stay in your gut for a couple of hours, right? So when you take zinc after that, right, let's say 1 hour after a meal, or with your meal, or 2-3 hours after the meal, what's going to happen? Well, the zinc is not going to be absorbed because the gut is still blocked. It's still blocked with those anti-nutrients, which will react with the zinc molecule and make it so it's not absorbed through the gut. So you have 2 choices. Either you take it on an empty stomach, right? Or you can, for example, if you don't eat too close to bedtime, which I think is quite a good way to do it, you can take it just before going to bed, right? 15 milligrams capsule, zinc citrate or zinc picolinate, maybe also with your magnesium glycinate for sleep, right? It's going to be absorbed. If you like to eat your dinners, let's say towards 8-9 p.m., right? So you don't have that many hours before you go to sleep, then I suggest you either do it on an empty stomach in the morning, or another way to do it is just avoid these things on the first meal, right? So make sure your first meal is mainly eggs, it's mainly meat, it's mainly cheese, it's mainly honey, it's mainly fruits. And when you do eat fruit, avoid the skins, right? Avoid the apples. Eat apples, but avoid the things that's underneath the skins, the polyphenols, because that's where they're found. If you think of any fruit or vegetable that has skin, the polyphenols are there, right? So peppers, tomatoes, these things, right? Let's say if you eat a watermelon won't have polyphenols, you know what I mean? Pineapple won't have polyphenols. Why? Because they do have them, but you don't eat the skin, right? Citrus as well, it doesn't have that much polyphenol. So do that. Or obviously you can also take them on an empty stomach. And I think that's the most important thing here, because people will tell you, yes, you should supplement zinc and stuff, but then these same people, they'll tell you, yeah, take your pill with your meal, and you've eaten bread, you've eaten rice, you've eaten pasta, you've eaten nuts and seeds and all the healthy stuff, right? And yeah, sure, it's healthy if you eat it without taking your important stuff. If you just eat a couple seeds or whatever, it can be healthy, right? But if it destroys the absorption of one of the most important minerals for you becoming a fucking man, come on, let's change our strategy a bit. Anyways, I think we're done. The 3 things I want you to remember: zinc cannot be stored. If zinc is not sufficient, you can ice your balls, you can take a shit in the middle of the room, you can pray to God, anything, your testosterone won't really change. You need that stuff because that's the foundation. And number 3, when you pair your zinc intake with, I'm going to say this until the day I die, legumes, nuts, grains, seeds, those 4 things. Also potentially vegetables and like fruits, skins and all that stuff. You will either destroy, either obliterate, or you will just reduce the amount of zinc that is being absorbed. So I want you to really optimize this. If you're taking supplements, try them on an empty stomach. I just did it. I just took 2 pills, empty stomach, no problem whatsoever, right? Zinc citrate, zinc picolinate, this one is a little bit more gentle, it's more bioavailable, so you're actually going to get more of it than this one. This one's dirt cheap, so whatever floats your boat. You can just buy this and double dose, right? 30 milligrams, just like I did today. Anyways, that's it for today. So for the ones who have remained, below is a link if you want to work with me one-on-one. I've been doing this shit for years. Do you know what I mean? Like this journey, me fixing my genes, fixing what was the cards that I was born with, that took, you know, literally every single day, 4 hours of deep work on that shit, learning, podcasts, books, trying supplements, trying workouts. I tried every single diet plan, fucking not ejaculating for 5 months. I've done it all. Do you know what I mean? Optimizing sleep, all that shit. Now, if you need like very individualized help with that stuff, like literally lifestyle design, literally solutions to your problems, not just information, because you get information for free, right? This is what you get for free, so subscribe to that stuff. But if you really want to take this shit on steroids and in 3 months change your life, you have my little calendar below. Book a call, we're gonna talk, we're gonna get to know each other. If there's something I can do for you, I'm gonna make you an offer. So, that being said, I'll see you in the next one, yeah? Bye.